Friends, welcome back to GravityTech, my educational channel. This is a continuation of our Python fundamentals course. In the last video, what we have seen, we learned about the Python history, the Python first program, and how to use the IDE for Python development. In particular, we are using PyCharm as an IDE for the Python development on the Windows system. So in today's video, what we are going to look at, we will go through the Python data types. I would like to remind you that if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do so that you don't miss any new videos that are added or uploaded. Also, please share it with those who are eager in learning computer programming languages like C, C++, Python, Perl, Shell, and also mathematics. Let's say 10th, 11th, 12th diploma in engineering mathematics. So this whole educational channel is for like complete computer stuff and the mathematics stuff. So what are we going to look at today is what data types. Generally in programming languages, what data types are? Data types are a fundamental concept which are used to classify and define the types of values that variable can hold or manipulate. If you already learned C or C++ or some kind of programming language, right, you must be aware what exactly the variable is, and then every variable is a kind of maybe a memory location, and that memory location has some name, the type, right, and that type is basically called as what the data type, right, which is used to maybe define what exactly can we store inside that variable, and then what operations we can perform on that particular variable. So when we talk about data types, what are data types, right? Data types basically determine the kind of operations that can be performed on the data and how that data is stored in a memory. So when we talk about different programming languages, the different programming languages they may have a varying set of data types, and mostly all those data types are actually categorized into two broad level types, like a built-in data types and a user-defined data types. So let's see what exactly the Python offers us in terms of the data types. So again, I would like to remind, right, if you haven't subscribed, please do subscribe to the channel, right, for getting notifications about all the new uploads. Okay. So the session objective is what? Learning the basics, right? What exactly the data types are in Python and how those can be used. And then what exactly are we going to cover as a part of the next session? So what we already saw, right? Let's say, so what are the data types, right? So variables that can store data of different types, and the different types basically can do different things. Now, what exactly the data types Python offers? Python has several built-in data types by default. Like the one of the data type is a kind of text data type, and then in particular we call it as what? str. So it basically we'll see what it is, right? Now there is the next one is like kind of numeric. When we see numeric, this is all in terms of the numbers, integer, float, and complex. These are the three numeric data types Python supports. There is a sequence as well. So there are three different sequence data types which Python supports: list, tuple, and a range. The fourth broad level data type is a mapping, and then in a mapping there is only one data type, in particular dictionary. In short, when we basically code it in a Python, we call it as a dict. We will see all these things. Now set has two different data types, set and frozenset. Boolean. Boolean is the single data type which always has a which basically always have value true or false. There is another one is a binary. In a binary, there are like three different data types: bytes, byte array, and the memory view. And then the last one is categorized as a none, which has neither data type defined. That is a none type. Now let's see, right, we'll go through all of these things on the PyCharm ID. So let me create a new file. So when we go to the project and then when we click here, right, we can create a new Python file. Now let's give the name as what? Data type, right? It will by default have the .py extension. Okay. Now let's go through all of the data types. The very first data type what we had is what? Text data type, if you remember. Now what did what exactly the text data type means? Text data type, it stores any kind of text data. Okay. It can contain the like single byte or multi-byte characters. Let's say now, yeah, if I say dstr, I'm just giving a name, right? So dstr is a name, right? So I can say t. See, now this is a single character. Okay, but still when we try to print the type of this, right, type of, we can have a comma separated dstr and then is, what are we trying to print? We are trying to print what is the type of this data type. Okay, let's see what exactly it gives. Correct. So here you need to select, right, which file. It is a current file we want to run. Okay. Now printf, I think this is what the C language means, right? Printf we use generally in C language. That's fine. See, now the type of T is what? The class str. Do you see it here? Maybe let me just increase the font so that you can see it, right? Now, just where did it go? Okay. See, now this is a code. If you look at here, right, you got what we got. The type of T is what? Class str. Now, you can also have a multiple values here, let's say. So multi-character string rather, right? This. So when you try to run this, right, it will tell you, right? See, now type of this is a class str. You can also have the string inside double quotes. It doesn't matter. Okay, the single quotes and double quotes are a kind of same. See, if you look at type of this is what again the str. You can have the multi-word string as well. The in C language you cannot, right? But here you can, right? This is a string type. Let's say. Now when you print it, right? See, it will say like type of what? This is the string type is what again str. Remember. So this is how you can have a string data type or text data type, and then it always has the type as what? Str. When you go here, it will basically tell this is a type function. What does it do? This is a print function. What does it do? All this is kind of a documentation. We have already seen what exactly the comments are, right? In this way the comment can be mentioned, and these comments are called as what? Documentation comments, which you basically see it here. Now this was about the text data type. Now let's see what is the integer data type, right? Let's see what is the integer data type. So when we say integer data type, now we are talking about the numeric. What are we talking about? Numeric data types. Numeric data types, right? And in a numeric data type, there is a first data type what we have is an integer. Now, what exactly integer means, right? The integer means it it can be like a positive number, it can be negative number, it can be whole number, but without decimals. Without decimals, and there is no limit on the length. Let's see now. Okay, let's say d int. Now, right. So if I say 23. Correct. And then if I type it here d int, right? I'm just trying to have the variable names as of good readable name, right? So when we say 23, right? 23 is what? Of integer type. See? So if we see, right, type of 23 is what? Class int. The way in C language or C++ language or Java language, right, there is some limit you have, but here you don't have any limit. Okay. In this case, if you right, see, so there is no limit as such on the integers. So this is one of the benefit here. But when you say 2.3, this can't be, or let's say 23.0, this is not an integer. This is not an integer. Why? This has the decimal point in it. So if it is a decimal, it is going to be what? A float. It is going to be what? A float, remember. Okay. So this is what actually, what does it mean by float then? Float means a floating point number. What does it mean by? It is a positive or negative, but it contains one or more decimals, right? Okay. Instead of maybe every time changing, right? Let's maybe have a data type as a mm, one name, so that we can easily just change the value of the here, and then it will basically tell us what it is, right? Now this means a float one. Okay, so it can be like minus as well. You can put it like minus. You can have the positive, but the decimal point is very, very important. You can also have like any number of any number of numbers, right, after the decimal point too. So let's see. So if you look at here, right, this is also float. So float is a number or one number which is basically positive or negative, but which always contains one or more decimals after that. So there is one more thing, right, what you have seen in the floats. There is one more thing what you have seen in the floats, right? Exponential. Have you seen some in like when you studied C or C++, right? You might have seen like this 34 E56. What does this really mean? This means 34 raised to what? This basically means 34 is to 56. This means 34 is to what? 56, like this. See, this means 34 raised to, so sorry, not raised to, 34 into 10 raised to 56. This is how it means. Okay. So when we use say like, let's say instead of 56, let's try to have the 5. So what it should print, if it is raised to 5, right? What it should print? It should just print 34, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. This is the way, right? It should print the number, correct? Now let's try that way. So data type, we will have here 34 E5. What does this mean? This is a float data type. This is a floating data type, right? Which has the value 34,000, like this. Now, not 34,000. It is going to be 34, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, like 34 lakh. Let's see. What does it have? See, do you see? On 34, there are 5 zeros now. So this is what it means when we say exponential floating data type. Okay. So let's say, so we covered what we covered, right? We covered str, we covered int, we covered float. Okay, now let's try to cover the complex. So now whoever have studied the mathematics, they must be knowing there are two types of numbers in a mathematics. One is the real number and another one is a complex number. Remember, now a complex number is always of the form what? A plus ib. Now see, I'm talking in terms of mathematics now. A is the real part and B is what? The imaginary part. But here in Python, we we basically refer complex number as what? A plus bj. So j is what? If you see j there, what does that mean? It is an imaginary part. Okay. So complex number will always be of the form what? A plus bj. Now let's see what exactly it is going to be, right? Let's say now if I say 3 plus 4j. So this is what? A complex number. This is a complex number with real part 3 and imaginary part 4. So see, the 3 plus 4j is what the complex number is. Now this is also a complex number. Okay, minus 3. minus 4, this is also a complex number. So a and b can be any number. Okay, now this is also a complex number. Okay, this is also a complex number with real part as what? A 0. So you can basically have 0 plus. This is the way. Okay, see, this is also a complex number because 0 doesn't have any meaning. That's why it is just maybe ignored. So remember, what we covered then, complex 2, correct? So str, int, float, complex, what that is what we have covered until now. Now let's talk about the list, right? Let's talk about the list now. So what is list? List data type is the data type in which it is basically of the collection type. It is basically of the collection type, which is a kind of ordered and unchangeable, sorry, ordered and what? Changeable, which allows the duplicate values. Now how it is going to be, right? Let's say if you want to have the list of like this, list of integers. Okay, let's say this is a list of 4 students who got marks in maths, correct, out of 100. Now since we want to maintain a list and in a numbered way, right, so we can just indexed way, you can just have it in this way. So list will always be enclosed into the square brackets, and all these elements will be separated by comma. Okay, now this data type is what? A list. When you say like this, what it says, the type of this is going to be what? A list. Now the one thing what I mentioned, list is a collection, and the second thing what? List is always enclosed into the brackets. The next thing what I said, right, this is a changeable. What does that mean? You can change it, right? You can maybe add new stuff here, right? You can remove the existing element, so you can add, update, remove. So you can maybe perform all those operations. That means what? You can update this list. Next thing, this is ordered. When you say this means this at the 0th index, first index, second index, third index, right? That way, this is an ordered list. That's the next thing. Now it allows the duplicate values. You can also have, let's say here 90 there, right? And then if you add 90 here, it allows it. So duplicate values are allowed. That's the next thing. What else? So unlike in other programming languages like C, C++, right, you really cannot have the array of mixed data types. But here you can have, let's say this is a string, right? Let's say these are the numbers. If I say 89.0, this is a float. If I say 3 plus 4j, this is a complex number. So this is the way I can have it. So this is all possible in Python. So a list can have the different data types together. Okay. So now this is a list. Remember, this is ordered, changeable, allows duplicate values, and also can be a mixed data types. Okay. The next, so what we saw is the list. Let's look at what is tuple. Now tuple is a kind of list only, but not mutable. Maybe what does that mean? We cannot change it afterwards. And tuple is always written in the open braces. Okay, like this. So this is not a mutable, let's say. See, so tuple will be like this. See, this is a tuple. The only difference in a tuple and the list is what? Tuple, the values. So once tuple is defined or declared, it cannot be changed. So you cannot delete an element from the tuple, you cannot update an element in a tuple, you cannot add new element in a tuple, right? So you cannot do all those operations, but in list it is possible. This is what the only difference in a tuple and the list. We'll see, right, when exactly we'll be looking at the examples, right? We'll see what data type to be used and how it to be used We'll see in a detail what are the functions you can perform in the tuple, what exactly the list. There will be a separate uh, lectures on or videos on each of the data type, mostly maybe, right, in a detail. Now let's talk about the range data type. Okay, so range in Python is another inbuilt Python data package which is mainly used in loops. So let's say if you want to iterate over first 100 numbers, or if you want to iterate over from 35 to 100, right, or any kind of range when you want to use, at that time we use the range data type. Let's say now if I put it like this, so range is a kind of a function. Range is the function which returns the complete range. Let's say 100 to 2000. So what it is going to give you, right? It will give you the all the numbers starting from 100 to 2000, and maybe you can use this data type in a for loop, right? Or maybe kind of loop data structures, looping concept. See, so the type of the range is what? A range. Understood? So now let's talk at the dictionary. Correct. So what we saw is tuple, and then we saw range too. Now let's talk about the dictionary. Okay. Now what is a dictionary? Dictionary is a collection in which basically, which is a kind of maybe earlier it was unordered, but right now it is ordered. Means the order matters. In 3.7, Python 3.7, in below versions of Python 3.7, that is Python 3.6 and below, those were like kind of unordered. And you can also make the changes in the dictionary. Now how? And there are no duplicate members in the dictionary. How dictionary is there, right? See, dictionary is always a key value pair. Now let's take an example of a students. Correct. Let's say an example of student record. Correct. So this will be a student record. Now see, dictionary is always written into the curly braces. List in square brackets, tuple in a open brackets, and then data. So dictionary is on curly braces. Now it always has the key and the value like this. It has key and value pairs. Okay, now the key can be a key is going to be the primary thing. You cannot delete, you cannot repeat the key. Let's say name, right? Say okay, so student name is going to be what? Atharva Hiraman Sonavane. Correct. Now the age. Correct. So you can say age is what? 12. Right. Standard, STD. You can say which standard he is in. 6. Right. Class and standard. Right. 6 class rather. Right. We should say class. So what exactly I'm going to have here? I'm having here, right? This is a one element. This is another element. This is a third next element. But this element is identified with this key. This element is identified with this key. So this element means what? It's a name. This means it's a age. This means it is a class, and of what? Data type, right? So this is how it is, the dictionary, right? And this is, earlier it was unordered, but right now it is a kind of order, right? If you want to, we'll have the detailed lecture what exactly the dictionary means and how, what all operations you can basically perform on the dictionary and all. But just remember, as of now, right, dictionary is like this, and then you can change, you can update anything, right, in the dictionary, and you can have, you cannot have the duplicate members. Like say, if I want to have the two classes, right? See, if I want to have the two classes, it will basically give me an error. It did not, but it considered the last one. See, it overridden this one, and it considered the last one. So it is not going to give the error. So this is considered as a kind of set. This is considered as a kind of set. Remember, okay, where the repeated elements are ignored and the latest element is considered. Okay, so this is how the dictionary is. So class dict. So we saw dictionary too, right? Let's go to the sets now. So set is again a collection which is unordered, mutable and unindexed. So you can basically, we already know, right? Let's say this is a set in mathematics. This is same as, this is same as like this. So you can write these elements in any order. It really doesn't matter. So order doesn't matter, but both the things are same. Okay. So that's how sets are also written in this only. But in sets, we don't have the key value pairs. Here, key, this is a key and the value. In sets, we don't have the key value pairs. So what it will be, let's say, Atharvi Raman Sunavarni, right? This, or maybe we can have, the sets are always to be considered to be what? Uh, collection of similar kind of data types. But even if you put like different kind of data types, that will work too. Okay, that's the 67. Now, when you say the data type of this is going to give you the data type what? Set. But if you add some key value pair here, correct? This will be considered as what? A dictionary. Remember. So the dictionary and sets have the only one difference mostly, right? In a dictionary, it is always a key value pair, and in sets, it is not. Okay. So remember. So let's go to the frozen set now. What is a frozen set? And then when I say sets, right, you can basically make any changes to the set. You can update, delete and remove the element, or add new elements. It is unindexed. When you try to find out uh, the first element in the set, right, at first time it might, you might get the answer as 1, but next time when you try to retrieve the first element of the set, you might get it as 4. Why? Because the order is not there. These are on unordered and unindexed, right? Again, in sets, you cannot have the duplicate members. If you put the duplicate members, right? See, now 1, 2, 1, 3. This set is same as what? 1, 2, 3. Remember. So the duplicate elements are ignored and considered as only once in a set. Remember. We'll see maybe in more detail. Now, what is a frozen set? Frozen set is again a set type only, but it is an immutable version. Immutable means you cannot change it. Once you declare the frozen set, you cannot change the elements of that particular element or particular variable. So while elements of a set can be modified at any time, elements of the frozen set remain the same after the creation. And due to this, frozen sets can be used as a keys in the dictionary or as elements of another set. Now, how those are, let's say, right? So this is a set, right? Let's say this is a set. Now, how we can make it as a frozen set? There is a function. There is a function frozen set. Okay. Now, this will make this set as what? Frozen, and then data type this you cannot modify it afterwards. See, now this is a frozen set. Earlier it was what? Set. Okay, so this is how the frozen set is. So we saw frozen set 2, right? Set and then frozen set. Now let's go to the next data type, that is a Boolean. This is the easiest data type, right? Why do we use the Boolean data type? Boolean data type is the one of the built-in data types which are basically provided by Python, and these data types only represent two of the values, which are those? True or false. So generally it is basically used to represent the truth values of the expression 2. So let's say if I say this is a true, correct, what it will be? Now the date, what will be print? Data type of true is what? Boolean, right? See, do you see it here? So data type of Boolean is what? Basically true is Boolean. You can also have the expressions here, right? See, if you say 2 less than 1, what does it mean? Is 2 less than 1? No, this is false. So here the answer will be what? False. See, that type of false is what? False. So if you put it like this, right, 1 equal to 1, what it will be? This is true because 1 is equal to 1, right? So this is a kind of Boolean data type. It will always have the value or true or false, correct? And these are generally used in like conditionals mostly. Okay. So what we saw is the Boolean. Now let's see what is the next data type. The next data type is what? Bytes. Let's talk about the bytes. Now bytes is the data type. Basically, what does it do, right? It gives us a kind of baby bytes object. Now, how do we have it? There is a bytes function. There is a bytes function, right? If you provide like this, what it is going to give? See, it will basically return an array of 4 bytes where maybe you can store the bytes data in terms of bytes. Okay, now how it is going to, we'll see in more detail what exactly it is. See, do you see these are the 1 byte, 2, 3 and 4 bytes. So this is an array of 4 bytes with the empty values, none values, and this is of the class what? Byte type. But let's say you can also give maybe a kind of values here, right? Let's say if you want to convert these into the bytes, right? What is it is going to do, right? Minus 8c. How it is? Yeah, we will see those things in detail. So what exactly the byte means? The bytes basically a function which returns a bytes object, and it can convert objects into the bytes objects or create the empty bytes object with the specified size. Okay, and byte, basically this byte function has the different prototype. See the class you can mention, you can give the uh, ints as iterables values, right? So there are things what we are going to have, right? We will basically see bytes array and memory view in a single in basically separate video. As of now, just remember bytes is a function which returns basically an empty array of bytes objects of the specified size, and then if you use the another bytes function which is a overloaded function, right? In that case you can basically convert that into the bytes object. Okay, let's see now. So we saw bytes. What is next? The next one is a byte array type. Byte array. Now what is a byte array? So byte array, the way we have the bytes, right? That way we also have the byte array function. Now what byte array is going to give? The byte array basically same thing. It returns an array of the bytes, whereas byte array is going to be like kind of unmutable. You cannot change. But in when you use the bytes, you can basically change or update that stuff. Okay. Now let's see. When you try to run it, it will basically say this is a byte array, and then the class is what? The type of this data type is what? Byte array. So the difference between bytes and the byte array is that bytes returns an object that cannot be modified, and byte array returns an object that can be modified. Okay. Now what we saw bytes, and then we saw byte array. Now let's look at the last one, that is what? A memory view. Memory view data type. See, we are going to see byte array and the memory view in detail in another video. But as of now, just to give you kind of an introduction what exactly it is, I'm telling you what the memory view, what is bytes, what is byte array. So the memory view again, right, is it's an what memory view object does, right? What they allow. Memory view objects allow Python code to access the internal data of an object that basically support the buffer protocol without copying. Mostly these are used in like a streaming purpose. So the memory view is kind of maybe a function, right? It's basically a function that allows direct read and write access to the object's byte oriented data. I'm not talking about the characters, I'm talking about the bytes. Every single character is has 8 bytes, right? Now when you try to read the character of a string, it will read it like at once, but when you try to read a byte in a character, it will read like 8 times, right? 8 bytes. So how that will be, right? Let's say now here you can have a memory view, right? And then memory view basically takes bytes objects there. Okay, now we want to see the memory, internal memory uh, view, right, of this bytes data. So it will return the bytes data, the bytes object, and then we will see how the actual memory is, or maybe how that internal data of an object in terms of the bytes is there, right? And when you try to print this, it will say at this particular memory, see this is a memory location, and then the class is what, a memory view. So this is what, so what we saw, we basically saw a string, we saw integer, float, complex, we saw tuple, list, range, dict, right? This is a kind of mapping we saw. Then we saw the sets and the frozen sets, right? We saw Boolean, and then we saw bytes, byte array, and memory view, right? So these are kind of maybe a data types which Python supports. So there is one more which we left with, that is a none. One more we left with what? A none. So you can just say like this, data type is what? A none. What does that mean? No data type, and then it will give you a none type. Okay, we'll see. So when we are going to deal with the actual examples, we'll see, right, what exactly the data type we need to use for the particular data structure, right? And then how to store that data in that particular variable, how to organize everything we are going to see when we look at the more complex example. This was just a kind of an introduction what exactly the Python data types are. Okay, now this is what we saw. So what exactly are we going to cover in the next video then? The strings, the detail in Boolean, right, and what exactly the operators are. So guys, I would like to remind you, if you like the video, make sure that you press that like button and then subscribe to the channel so that you will get updates about, or notifications about all the new videos which I'm going to upload as a part of this channel. So, and share it with the people, right, who are really eager to learn this. So please do not forget to like, subscribe, and share. I wish you happy learning with the GravityTech. Thank you.